All right, imagine that there was news breaking of a squad of suicide bombers targeting a procession of cars carrying world leaders. A self-proclaimed terrorist group with a cult of sacrifice, death, and revenge that calls itself the Black Hand takes responsibility. This terrorist organisation has no clear geographical or political location to call its own. It has scattered in cells across borders and lacks links to a specific government. They are part of a complex and unpredictable range of forces, including declining empires and rising powers. What would you think? Is this something that you would expect in a world news report today? Well, this describes Europe in 1914. It was characterised by political instability and violence. From a 21st century perspective, the crisis of 1914 is more familiar than we might first imagine. So in this second video on the causes of World War I, we're going to be having a look at the shot that sparked the war, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie by Gavrilo Princip, a member of a group called the Black Hand. So on the morning of Sunday the 28th of June, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir apparent to the Austro-Hungarian throne, and his wife, Countess Sophie Chotek, arrived by train in the city of Sarajevo, and they joined a motorcade for a ride to the city hall to take part in a ceremony. And this picture here shows the Crown Prince Franz Ferdinand and his wife, Sophie, leaving Sarajevo City Hall on the 28th of June, 1914. 5 minutes later, the couple are fatally shot. So we have the Archduke and his wife quite visible. Here you can see a wax figure found in the Sarajevo Museum. His bright green ostrich feathers at the top of the Duke's hat. So they are in the car on their way back from the ceremony. And we have 7 terrorists positioning themselves at intervals along the quay, a broad street that runs along the bank of the river through the centre of Sarajevo. The numbers here represent each of the assassins waiting for the motorcade to drive past. Now, strapped around their waists were small bombs with 12-second chemical fuses. In their pockets, they had loaded revolvers. And the assassins were spread along this planned route of the motorcade, ready to take an opportunity or to act if one member of their group happened to be searched and arrested. Each of these 7 people carried a paper packet of cyanide powder so that he could take his own life when the deed was done. Of the 7 would-be assassins, only 2 would carry out their instructions. The first to go into action was a man named Kabrinovich. He'd placed himself at the riverside along the quay down here. He pulled out his bomb, he broke the detonator against a lamppost, and he threw it at the passing car. But the bomb missed the Archduke's car. It fell on the ground and it exploded underneath the car behind. It did wound several of the officers in that car. It gouged a hole in the road, but the Archduke kept his cool and decided that they would continue on their plan to go to the town hall. So they're in the motorcade here, the bomb goes off, but they continue to drive up the road and up off here to the town hall. The remaining assassins are still waiting at their posts, and they could have completed their task, but they were all young and inexperienced, and most of them lost their nerve as the cars drove past, even though their passengers were within range. And you can see from this image here that the car itself was an open top. This is the original car, and provided them absolutely no protection from any would-be assassins. When Gavrilo Princip heard the sound of that first bomb exploding, he assumed that the plot had succeeded, and he ran towards the position, but he saw Kabrinovich being taken away by the police. And Princip afterwards said, "I immediately saw that he had not succeeded in using the cyanide and he had not been able to poison himself. I intended to shoot him quickly with my revolver, but at that moment, the cars drove by. So what this meant was that Princip abandoned his plans of assisting his comrade by shooting him, and turned his attention to the motorcade. But by that time, he could see the Archduke. It was easily recognisable, but the cars were moving much too fast for him to get a clear shot. So what Princip decided was that he would stay on the street, knowing that the couple were set to come back from the town hall and travel back down the quay, and they were supposed to be turning down this street here back to their next appointment. This route had been publicly advertised, and so all the assassins knew exactly where the car was supposed to be at what time. So Princip decides that he's going to position himself in front of a shop that was on the corner of these two streets here, and he was going to wait for the cars to come back. So despite the ceremony going quite well at the town hall, they decided to change their return route just in case there were any more attacks planned. But unfortunately, nobody told the drivers of the car. And so as the Archduke and his wife and the rest of the people in their group were returning from the town hall, the lead car turned right onto Franz Joseph Street as had been previously planned, instead of the changed route, which was supposed to go back down the quay. And this gave Gavrilo Princip a second opportunity to carry out the assassination. Had the drivers gone straight, according to the new plan, Princip would not have been able to attack the Archduke. The car slowed down quite a lot as it turned the corner, and he was able to walk over to the car toward the curb. He wasn't able to disentangle the bomb that was tied to his waist in time, so instead he draws his revolver and he fires twice at point blank range into the open passenger compartment of the car. And here I have a picture of the guns that were used by the assassins. So later on, Princip in his testimony said that it seemed as if time had slowed down as he walked out to the curb. The sight of the Duchess gave him a momentary pause, and he said that he thought, as he saw the lady, that he reflected for a moment about whether or not he should shoot. But at the same time, he was filled with a peculiar feeling. To onlookers, it appeared at first as if the shooter had missed his mark, because Franz Ferdinand and his wife remained motionless and sitting upright in their seats. But in reality, they were already both dying. The first bullet had passed through the door of the car and hit the Duchess in the stomach, severing an artery. The second shot hit the Archduke in the neck, and it tore a jugular vein. Here we have the uniform that the Archduke was wearing when he was assassinated. And this is a drawing of the moment of the assassination, which was published in an Italian newspaper on the 2nd of July, 1914. So as just after the shots are fired, the car accelerates across the river and heads towards Connaught Palace, obviously looking to possibly save the royal couple. Back on the streets, the soldiers arrest Princip, and you can see him here. Franz Ferdinand's bodyguard, Count von Harrach, heard the Archduke speaking in soft voice words that were to become famous all around the world. "Sophie, don't die. Stay alive for our children." But of course, Sophie was already dead by the time they had reached the palace. They rushed the couple into some rooms in the palace on the first floor. Franz Ferdinand was already in a coma by the time they arrived, and he died within minutes. The time was just after 11 o'clock in the morning. And here I have a photo for you of Sophie and Franz lying in state after their death. So we have a very busy August that follows this event. Austria declares war on Serbia on the 28th of July. We've got Germany declaring war on Russia on the 1st of August. Germany declaring war on France on the 3rd of August. Britain declaring war on Germany on the 4th of August. Germany declaring war on Belgium on the 4th of August. Austria-Hungary declaring war on Russia on the 6th of August. Serbia declaring war on Germany on the 6th of August. Britain and France declaring war on Austria-Hungary on the 12th of August, and Austria-Hungary declaring war on Belgium on the 22nd of August. Here we have a cartoon that was published on the 20th of September 1914, and it depicts the Allied nations, or troops representing each of the Allied nations, confronting the so-called monster of the Central Powers, Germany and Austro-Hungary. So from a 21st century perspective, people now look back on the actions taken by the Habsburg Austria-Hungary a little bit more sympathetically than was common in the 20th century. And being a little bit more sympathetic can lead us to rethinking about the story of how war came to Europe in 1914. For example, really thinking about the complex context of the location where these events are occurring, the Balkans. Of the 7 assassins, 6 were actually ethnic Serbs. 3, including Princip and Kabrovinic, the shooters, had only recently crossed the border from Serbia into Austria-Hungary. They had been supplied with bombs, guns, and poison of Serbian manufacture, and Princip had recently been trained by a Black Hand agent in a park outside Belgrade in Serbia. There were links between the Black Hand and important people in the Serbian state as well. The Serbian Prime Minister seemed to have known in advance that the attack was going to happen. And the assassination at Sarajevo is treated by many historians as just a pretext, an event that had not really much impact on the real forces and the real interactions that brought about the First World War. But if we think about it, the assassination confronted the Austro-Hungarian authorities with a challenge that they just couldn't ignore. Imagine if the United States had a president-elect and his wife killed by Tehran-trained hit squad. How would they respond? We can't really imagine them ignoring it. Here's an extension task for those who have some time, perhaps ahead of the rest. Thinking about the Balkan Wars of 1912 to 13, there was this loose alliance of states that defeated the Ottoman Turkish Empire in this area, and it does have quite an impact, this victory. So find out what that impact was, and how does that impact on the Austro-Hungarians? This victory changes their view of international relations, and what does it lead them to do? And then later on, why does Russia so strongly support Serbia? She's got some long-term aims that you could have a look at. This picture here is of a museum called the Assassination Museum. It's in Sarajevo, and this is the exact corner where the assassination occurred. And inside, there's items from the royal couple and associated with the murder itself. After this video, you're going to be having a look and working in groups to create a poster. Following that, you're going to be doing a consolidation activity with a Venn diagram. And then at the very end, we're going to have a class debate about whether or not Princip started the war and whether or not he should have a statue in his honour.